Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my always outrageous host companion, it's Mr. Sejohn Zerowick. How you doing, Sejohn?
Hey, everybody. I appreciate the new moniker. I'm sorry, I was a little caught off guard.
No, yeah, it's what we do. And before we go any further, Beetlejuice, your move, motherfucker. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Say Report. It's been a week. It's been an interesting week. I guess I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. That's where we're going to start. If you listen to the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe podcast episode that dropped this past Friday, which would have been my God, I've lost all concept of math, 12th of April, you may have noticed I was coughing and sounding like I was a little bit on my deathbed. Hopefully I sound a little bit better. Sejohn, do I sound a little bit better than I did on that episode of the week
You
of?
sound great, man. No, you sound great. You got your finger on that cough button, though, right?
I do, actually, I do. Also, I'm doing a cough drop. I'm letting it dissolve in the beginning of the episode. Let's see if you can notice that I have a cough drop in my mouth.
No better audio than talking through your cheeks. Just
Oh, it's so good though. But it turns out, I guess this is where we're gonna start. I had a double ear infection, which was causing a heinous amount of postnasal drip, which was irritating my throat, which is why I sounded that way. I did not have the flu, A or B. I did not have COVID. All of that was because of an ear infection in both of my ears. So that's fun for a guy who, relies on his ears for his job. Kinda.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. This is just that time of the year where everybody's normally sick anyway, and I feel like we're all still kind of always on edge. Like when when you just start to notice that everybody around you is sick again, there's just a lot of memories that come flooding back, shall I say, for me, where I'm just like, oh no, it's happening again. And I feel like this is probably going to be us for the rest of our lives.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was so nervous. So I finally got my teeth done. The saga that began way back on December 17th, 2023 has come to an end, which is exciting. I am excited to say that my teeth are now, complete, I guess is the way to say. I don't know. I had to get
finally cured that old hoof and mouth you had, huh?
No, don't joke about that. Hoof and mouth disease is terrible and on the rise. But when I woke up on Monday, I felt like that postnasal drip was really making my throat feel heinous, and I'm like, I have to take a COVID test. I can't put it aside because if it tests positive, this fucking tooth odyssey will have to extend itself. And I take it, and I'm fine. I'm like, oh, I guess it's just a cold. Which is weird, because, I also hadn't had a cold, probably because of all the masking and other people being aware of the fact that they didn't want to catch, the big COVID, right? So it kept other diseases from being as rampant, right? If everybody's cleaner and more, attentive to how germs are spread, I don't know what to tell you. That's just evidence in my life. So that whole thing happens, and then I wake up on Tuesday, and my tooth, they're still raw from all the work that got done on Monday. So I'm like, I don't feel 100%. I got a little bit of sick time. I'll recover. And then Wednesday, I'm like, I'm going to go to work. I'm all excited to go back to work. And I felt and sounded like death. And you could hear that if you go listen to the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe episode of the week of, because I didn't not record because I wasn't going to put that off just because I had a little bit of a tickle in my throat. But Sejohn, here's the fun thing. Wednesday, I also called the doctor's office to try to get an appointment, and they did not get back to me, which was an annoyance. I'm not going to lie about that. So Thursday morning, I do the same thing. Now, here's a problem that I have. When the doctor's office is open, I call and I leave a message saying that I want to make an appointment. I don't talk to anybody, even though the office is open. Why can't I leave that same message when the office is closed? Why do I have to wait for them to be open to talk to a machine? Why can't I just talk to a machine at 8 o'clock? Also,
that seems like an oversight on somebody's part that the machine's not recording after hours. That just seems like a weird
Like I
Because
could,
like there's other people that have to get in touch with doctors besides you, like besides
right,
just patients, right? Like if somebody's calling because they need like a file sent over or something, and in an emergency situation that might happen at night.
right. I mean, they have an answering service, right? But an answering service is for like emergencies. But if you want to
Mm.
leave a message to set up an appointment, just stay on the line. That should be doable, right? It's weird that I had to wait for them to office open to not talk to anybody to like set up an appointment. They finally call me back on Thursday and they're like, yeah, you're not a patient here, which is news to me because, you know, they've been my primary doctor since I was like 10 years old. But I guess never having gotten sick enough to go to the doctor in like the time of the pandemic, they're like, oh, he must not want to be a patient of his primary doctor anymore. So I'm not in their system as a patient anymore, which was news to me. I wasn't aware that that was like a thing that could happen. I didn't realize that my doctor needed like regular checkups. So it's a thing to be aware of, right? Learn from my stupidity. So I had to go
Could
to
also be an insurance side of things in terms of keeping up with like records and things like that. If it saves them 5 cents to not have to like contact certain people because you haven't been to the doctor in 6 years, they'll do it. You know, so patient purging will happen.
yeah.
I'm not sure what happened to you in this particular case, but yeah, it could happen because the doc is trying to keep the record straight. It could happen because insurance is trying to keep records clean. But yeah, generally, if you don't show up at a place for about 6 or 7 years, they kind of write you off at some point.
I mean, I guess the reason why it's weird is that I mean, I have had health insurance, the same health insurance for that 6-year period.
Well,
And
I
I
think
have
the
to
weirder
say that
thing
they're
is
my
the response,
primary.
like, right. The response is like, you're not a patient here is like a really weird response in a lot of ways because like at some point they still have your records, right? Like they need to still have your records.
Yeah.
So like
So what happens?
they should at least be able, yeah, they should at least be able to go back and be like, oh, yeah, just so you're aware, we haven't heard from you in 6 years. So like we need to set you back up. It's a different conversation than just like, we don't know who you are.
Yeah, it was a little strange. And I'm like, okay, so to see them, I have to do a new patient interview. So I'm just going to go to urgent care, which I mean, I'm not super happy about that, but I called beforehand. Urgent care didn't open for another 2 hours, so it wasn't until 11 that I could go. And I contacted them and I'm like, I know I can't make an appointment, but like, is it busy? Like, am I going to be waiting? They're like, no, if you can get here now, like there's one person ahead of you. So I go to urgent care and I'm there for a long time. I hear everything. But the craziest thing about urgent care is that they look at my insurance card and they're like, is this still your primary? And I go, well, I thought it was. And she goes, oh, they purged you? Yeah, they've been doing that a lot lately. So, like, it's a thing that apparently my doctor's office, which is kind of like one of the only primary care places in the town of Coventry, has just been doing. So that was kind of nice, but also when the receptionist is like, yeah, that's going around, and it's not like a cold or stomach bug, that felt a little weird. I'm not going to lie.
Well, it's also really wild because like we generally have accepted as a society all around really that like there was 3 years there, maybe even 4 if you really want to do the math right, that we don't count towards any of this shit, right? Like if you had a bet with somebody in March of 2020, right, and like all of a sudden like the world went to shit, and then like 4 years later you came back to them and you were like, hey, I owe you that $40. They wouldn't be like, yeah, plus the juice, right? Like no, it would just be the $40, right? There's this understanding that the last 4 years just didn't happen.
I don't know. That's
So to like purge you for the record for not showing up for the last 5 years, well, like yeah, nobody did fuck all for the last 5 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. It's like it's enough that other people are taking notice, right? And also the type of person who like when you're like, I still owe you that $40, who would say, yeah, you fucking do. They're actually probably the type of person who would be expecting the vig as well. Because like you said, most people they'd be like, hey, I think that $40 we can forgive it. You know, because of the worldwide health emergency we both lived through. Right? Like, I needed that $40 then. I'm pretty good now.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah. So then I see the coolest doctor. He got freaking skull ring on. He gave me a fist bump at the end of it. Tells me I got the double ear infection. I'm on 4 medications right now. which I forgot to take one today because I wanted to do it right before the show. But then, small fire in the kitchen making breakfast. So that got a little delayed. So remind me when we're ending the show, Sejohn, that I got to do my Flonase. Please.
Okay.
That's your responsibility. And anybody at home who's listening, contact me and make sure that I did my Flonase on Sunday. But I've done the steroid, the antibiotic, and the anti-cough pill that they've given me. So I should be good to go for this episode. But in addition to all of that, I also took a Fisherman's Friend at the beginning, which I did crunch down. I'm no longer sucking on it. Are you familiar with Fisherman's Friend, Sejohn?
I feel like we've talked about it on this very show, about how they're the best fucking cough drops in the world. They're like fucking magic. They probably have cocaine in them.
Yeah, they're insane. And I have been trying to get them during that whole 3 years that, as Sejohn said, we've kind of just forgiven. And they became, damn near impossible to find. But yesterday I'm scrolling through Amazon, and I see them, and I'm like, oh my God, they're available. It's $24. But you know what?
You get a 3 or a 6-pack or some nonsense, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, there's 20 lozenges in a bag. That's fine. I'm fine paying it because I always want a bag of fucking Fisherman Friend at my recording moment. I want one in my office at work so that if I have a cough, I can at least cover it or hide it should I have somebody come in or something like that. So I order it. Turns out that for $24, how many Fisherman Friends do you think I got, Sejohn? We're talking the lozenges. How many of the lozenges do you think I bought for $24? Because I don't know how to read Amazon.
Wait, what did you say? How many did you say was in a package, in a bag?
20.
There's 20 in a bag, right?
Yeah.
So I would guess probably in the 100 area. You probably got 5 bags.
480. I bought 480 Fisherman's Friends. Needless to say,
yeah, man. I became a little bit of a Fisherman Friends drug dealer myself when I was in grad school. Being in theater grad school, people are always looking for a throat lozenge at some point. People who are even the slight bit sick. And I mentioned one day, oh man, back in the East Coast, Fisherman Friends, that's what I always want. And I can never find it out here. And so we did the Amazon thing. We ordered a bunch on Amazon, and then we for a while I just had a stash of them in my locker at the school, and if people needed them, they knew they could go in and grab one. And it was just this thing hey, you're running low on Fisherman Friend, got to put another order in. For about 2 years, that was all that was my responsibility on every show, was I was the cough drop guy.
Yeah, I mean, they're fantastic. I took one last night before I went to bed to be I'm going to be okay this way, let it dissolve before I fall asleep. Had one when I woke up. I'm just so happy to have them back in my life. I don't want to become addicted like my great uncle Joe, as my mother told me. He always smelled like Fisherman's Friend, though it is kind of a menthol smell, and I don't know if they put menthol in dip or chew back in the 60s. I don't know. I just learned about my great uncle Joe. He was a POW in Japan. So that's a thing about somebody connected to my family that I didn't know before today. And it's all because of Fisherman's Friend. Not a sponsor. But I will say this. If you are in the Discord and you want some Fisherman's Friend, let me know and I'll give you a bag of 20. Because I got bags of 20 to spare. Is what I can say.
You ordered 500 lozenges. That's great. Yeah, Amazon gets you though with that shit. I was trying to find we've got an older projector, and we've got a sheet that we like to hang up on the side of the house in order to project movies on it while we're outside grilling and chilling. And it's getting to be that time of the year. It's actually starting to get nice out again, right? So we were gonna put it up, and it's always a pain in the ass to hang the sheet up. It's the worst part, trying to figure out the best way to do it. And I realized last year that the what do you call it on the side of the house, just under the roof?
The gutter.
There's but there's essentially that. Is magnet it's not aluminum. It's some type of metal that actually you can put magnets on. Right. And so I was just well, fuck, we'll just get some magnet clips and just hang it right from that. And so that's been my thought for the last year. And I've been all excited to try this experiment. And then I went to go and try and find these stupid clips around here, and I can't fucking find them anywhere. And it's the stupidest thing. And they're supposedly at Office Max, supposedly at the Kroger's, supposedly this, but everybody's either sold out of them or they just aren't on the shelves where their apps are all telling me they are. It's the dumbest thing to not be able to find. So of course I went to Amazon, right? And I go to place the order, not really I thought I had what I wanted right in front of me. I go to place the order, and it turns out it was for like 5 boxes with like three in each or some shit. And I was like, I don't need 15. I don't need over a dozen of these things. I just needed two. I need one for one corner, one for the other. That's all I need.
Yeah. I mean, I thought like 100 for $25 seemed like a reasonable price. 500 for $25. I feel like it's a steal for
I
these.
feel like somebody mispacked your shit or something, but we all know how Amazon feels about that.
Yeah. I mean, and they're good until 2026. So, like, we'll see how many I have left over come 2026. But I have a feeling that as somebody who uses my voice here and at my job, that, like, I'm going to need them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I miss them. They're delicious. And they make my throat feel really good. So that's been that. So I am on the third day of a 10-day antibiotic treatment, which is not the best, but, you know, it is what it is. At least I was able to drink during the eclipse. And I promise, as the title says, this is the last you're going to hear about the eclipse from the Say Report. Because, Sejohn, being in Utah, were you even privy to the eclipse at all? Like,
not in a major way.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of a slither of a thing to look at, and like it wasn't. We were not a destination, shall I say, for people. We were too far north for sure, and as far as the time of day, it wouldn't have even if we were in the direct path at that time of day, it wasn't going to be that impressive. The real winners here are like down in like the New Orleans to like Florida area, from what I can tell. Like,
well, Mexico was like the best, and then as high as like there was a town in Maine that I can't remember the name of, like Horriton or something like that, and those were like perfect totality spots. And like, first of all, I've never been one to like get excited about the eclipse. I don't know. Like, it's been weird this week. Like, grown adults being like, what is it gonna mean? Or Tony DeCopel on CBS this morning, like, what does the eclipse mean for us? And it's like, does it really mean anything, right? Like, it's just a celestial event. I'm excited that NASA gets to, like...
A reminder of the perfect chaos that allows us to survive the three-body problem. Like, there's on the one hand, like the amount of people trying to assign some type of otherworldly meaning or some larger like grand design meaning to the whole thing, those people would fucking drive me up a wall, right? That hearing those kinds of stories, some of them straight up horrific at this point, but like that shit definitely. But like the amount of scientists out there that want to be like, let's use this as a really cool opportunity to talk about our actual place, like geographically / astrographically, like I don't even know what the like the ways in which you have to measure where we are and how perfect the system is that we actually were able to like survive like past the bacteria stage of our evolution, like that kind of shit. I'm down. Like I love the amount of excitement people have like really started to have about that kind of shit.
Well, that is not what I've been hearing. I've been hearing like the Jimmy Kimmel opening of like, what is an eclipse? And people being stupid on the street, not knowing what an eclipse was. And like these TV news anchors being like, I'm scared. I don't know what it's going to mean. Like, I wish that there were more scientists talking about it. Like, I know Bill Nye did some stuff too, but like, he was just like, here's what's going to happen. The moon is going to pass in front of the sun while we're directly like parallel to the sun. So
there's
like
been a couple of good pop-ups with like science YouTube and stuff. Nothing. That's the other side of it. Is also I have not been seeing that much about the eclipse, other than like, hey, it's cool that it's happening, and then like, hey, a couple of crazy people like went out and gave out $700 tips the day before, thinking they were never gonna have to pay that bill, like that kind of shit. Like definitely hearing about that stuff, but like as far as the actual like day of, I honestly there was a moment in the afternoon where I was reminded that the eclipse had happened earlier in the day, and I was like, oh, I thought it just got overcast for like 10 minutes, but no, it must have been that.
That is one of the reasons why I wanted to have a at least brief segment on this episode, because as somebody who was nowhere near the line of like the affected areas as the eclipse happened, I was curious what it was like for you. In Utah.
I'm sure that it looked. I'm sure that if I had thought of it at the time and had the right equipment to look at it, because obviously that's the other side of it, is like there is also a lot of work that has to go into actually enjoying the eclipse that I think a lot of people were not really necessarily prepared for. You can if you're in an area of the country that where they were cool enough to like hand out free glasses in the mail, like I'm really jealous of you because that's not the kind of shit that would happen out here. So like the amount of like high school science project I would have to work on in order to actually enjoy the eclipse at the level at which it was going to exist here just didn't equal worth it to me.
Yeah. I mean, I got
What has been
my, I
again
got,
really cool is like the afterwards, like the photos from like NASA that NASA's been putting out, the photos that like certain news organizations from certain parts of the country have been putting out. Like again, that shit is rad, and I love that. That's just not what we would have seen out here in Utah. So I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I got my blackout glasses at Sonic because I tried their blackout shake, which was
Nice.
a slushy sort of thing. It was delicious. I enjoyed it. But that's how I got my glasses. But then also at like 12:30 on Monday, hey man, do you have like extra eclipse glasses I can have? And it's like, honestly, it took all of my power to be like, fuck off. Like, you knew it was coming. You're asking 90 minutes before it's going to affect us for freaking eclipse glasses? What is wrong with you? Like, oh, what, did you just hear about it? I kind of jealous if you just heard about it because I felt,
I gotta be honest, man. The amount of people that have been freaking out about it would make you think like some people, yeah, they only just heard about it.
yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I was over inundated with people talking about the eclipse. And on some level, I get it. My parents put it in the best answer. For a lot of people, it's the last eclipse that they'll ever see, Devon. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's sad. You went dark. You went darker than when the moon crosses in front of the sun for a few minutes.
Right, but yeah, but I mean that's the idea, right? Is
Yeah.
like it's kind of a pretty stark reminder of our place in the universe and how insignificant it truly is. But there's power in that, and
Yeah. There's
there
something there.
and no, there's there are certain people that take that kind of information and rise to the challenge of that idea, right? And like that's what science should do. I don't know. It's also really wild because like just the amount of people trying to describe it and we've lost that connection between arts and humanity and science more and more every year it feels like, and I feel like, man, the phrase they should have sent a poet, right, is like I have been really kind of missing some of the better like write-ups that we could have had about an event like this that 20 years ago we'd be talking about like the beauty of it. But I don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like you have a group of people that are very into it and are having a hard time describing it. You have a group of people that are very into it and they're off their fucking rocker. And then you have people like us who like we get it, but like it's also not a huge momentous thing for us. And I don't want to downplay like how important it can be to other people. It
Oh,
just
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know.
I'm not trying to downplay.
Didn't
It's just, it was one of those things that like, and they're still talking about it. Like, it's still, oh, we had the eclipse this week. And I'm like, yeah, but that was a shared moment that we had. Like, we got to move on. Though, granted, some of the things that we have to move on to are like stark and scary. And I don't want to talk about it on the show. That's like the big thing. And I know that we're a show about everything. I'm just not like mentally prepared to talk about some of the things that happened this weekend. Some of the things that happened last night in terms of
Yeah.
when we're recording. Like, I'm not. I can't do it. What I will talk about is a goalie scored a goal in the NHL, Sejohn. Did you see this? Somehow,
Sorry, no. All the NHL news going on around here is about how the Arizona Coyotes were apparently just told that they're moving to Salt Lake, and I don't. And from what I can tell from all of the reporting on it, it seems like it was a bit of a surprise.
yeah. I didn't know about that. That's exciting, huh? Local hockey team, kinda?
Yeah, we've been trying for a while to get some stuff sorted. We lost a minor league baseball team. Not lost. They just moved to a different part of the state, and so like Salt Lake is just not going to be where their home is anymore. So I think that I don't know. There's just been that plus our bids for the Olympics. Utah's trying so hard to become a sports town in a lot of ways. Not like primarily, I think, but like there is definitely a good strong subplot to this city of us really trying to become a sports town. So I hope this works out. I just like the thing I feel bad about is just like it's just that kind of really like harsh reminder of how we treat athletes. Yeah, we can talk for days about how some of them can make millions of dollars a game without getting off the bench, but that's not all of them. Some guy on that team who only makes about $100,000 a year and is getting his fucking ass beat every game, went home to his kids that night and was like, I guess we're moving to Salt Lake without me really having much of a choice in it.
Jeez, that's it. All right, so it was actually an AHL, which now I understand why it was only the number 2 best play on Sports Center's top 10 plays of the day yesterday, because the AHL doesn't count. It's not the NHL. But Louis Dominique, the goalie for the Hartford Wolfpack, was able to score a goal while the other team had their goalie pulled. And I love it. I love seeing a goalie score. How many times do you think it's happened in the NHL? Because now I'm sitting here with the actual facts in front of me.
I bet you it's less than a dozen.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It has happened 17 times in the NHL.
Just over a dozen, man.
Yeah. The first time was in the 1979 to 1980 season by Bill Smith of the New York Islanders. And then the most recent goal for somebody in the NHL who is a goalie was Tristan Jarry of the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 23-24 season. That was on November 30th, 2023. And you know what? I love that because the Bruins kicked the Penguins' ass last night. So it feels pretty good to give them like a little sprinkle of accolades as that. But yeah, 17 times this happened. And God, I just love to see it. I've never been present for one, obviously, because there's been like only 17. But it's one of those things that just like hockey is an incredible game because there's a way for the guy who should never be able to score a goal to score a goal. I don't know what I'm doing here, Sejohn. I'm sorry. I've been like stuck in the house all week and just like watching things, reading things. I'm about to do a review. Are you ready for like a fun review of something?
Oh, sure. Okay.
What do you got?
Because I'm still doing sports stuff. But
let's do sports stuff. Let's stay on the sports stuff. It's fine. What are you going to share about sports?
When you started talking about this, I thought you were going to go start talking about the Cody Rhodes stuff last week with the WWE and all that shit. Because you want to talk about like a wild story in a sport that like nobody's paying attention to anymore. But like everything that happened at WrestleMania this year with Cody Rhodes winning the championship and like a story that, depending on how long you've been following, is like 35 years in the making. It was just kind of crazy. Did you hear about any of this?
So I have been avoiding it. I'm a little upset because I forgot that as a Peacock subscriber, I had free unfettered access to WrestleMania. So I kind of been sour grapes about it. I will admit that. So I've just been kind of avoiding.
So have you been hearing anything about like the return of like The Rock and stuff like that?
Yeah, the other thing is that like as somebody who used to do overhire work for the WWE, for the Worldwide Wrestling Entertainment Company, it's a little difficult to watch it because I kind of see the strings. And I know that's wrong, right? Going to a puppet show and watching the strings,
I think actually, maybe this is 2024 talking, but I think it's been this way for a while now. I think the way that wrestling really is truly watched and enjoyed now is with that acknowledgement of, right? And it's been kind of wild because the Cody Rhodes thing is one of those types of stories, the rare wrestling story that crosses the boundary. It goes from like the kayfabe stories, like the week to week, like characters that we see on these shows, but also goes into some of the behind the scenes stuff as well. And it's just as meaningful in like both levels, which is why I think it's hitting as big as it is. So for anybody that doesn't know, like Cody Rhodes last weekend won the WWE Championship. He's from a legacy family. The Rhodes have been in wrestling for as long as wrestling has been televised. There's been somebody in that family wrestling, and he's the first in the family to get this far in the WWE specifically, because that's always been the secret of like the Rhodes family is like they were always big in all the other like other iterations of wrestling. You know, like NCW, I think was it for a while. Fucking way back in the day when they had like TNA and shit and all that sort of stuff, and they would win those kinds of big events. NWO, like there was all other sorts of shit that had never been able to quite compete with like Vince McMahon and the world WWF, AEW, WWE, like the that like side of things, right? AEW is not the part of that, sorry, but like WWF and WWE and all that shit. Um, and the ways in which like they like so his father played the I think his name was like the All American or some shit like that, like Dusty Rhodes, like way back in the 90s. And like his whole thing was he was just this like blue collar wrestler, and he won in a bunch of those smaller leagues, right? So McMahon offers to bring him back into, well, not back in, but like introduce him in to the wider worldwide wrestling, or world I think at that time it's the WWE, right? But when he does, I don't like the story. It's always hard to tell where the stories are real and the stories are just kind of being pushed for the narrative. But essentially, McMahon treats him like shit. Like so, like the bit with him becomes when he comes to the WWE is that like every interstitial like shot of him is like him fixing one of the other guys' like car, or him working on the plumbing in somebody's house, or him being the pool boy in the scene or some shit. And he just keeps getting like shit on and losing all of these matches. And like it's kind of a shame because he's such a big hit in these like smaller leagues that when they bring him up to the big league, he just kind of becomes this joke. And then his brother becomes an even bigger fucking joke after that because Dustin Rhodes, the son of Dusty Rhodes, comes in and he gets turned into the character of McMahon turns him into the character Goldust. Do you remember this guy
I know
from the
Gold
90s?
Dust. Yeah,
It's like an
crazy stuff.
upsetting like characterization of like slant homosexuality, like everything. Gay panic is essentially like the big characterization for that character. It's wild and it's upsetting and like really kind of insulting. And again, to this like family that is like, outside of the WWE, like doing huge, right? So people that follow Cody Rhodes, who is Dustin Rhodes, Gold Dust's like brother and Dusty Rhodes' son, they've been following Cody for a while because he's been doing really big outside of the WWF. Got brought into the WWF, was kind of getting this like redemption story for a while now. Again, for like years, they've been kind of building towards this whole thing of he wanted to, for his family, wanted to do this, wanted to do this. Um, but he's just not been able to like get out of some of the lower ranks, right? Well, all of this shit goes down this year with fucking Vince McMahon, right? Like we all heard about what a dirtbag he was. The truth is we all kind of always knew all along, but this is undeniable proof now, and now like they're finally able to get him out of there, right? And there's a whole bunch of shit that goes on behind the scenes. The company that owns the UFC is actually the one the larger like corporation that owns the UFC comes in and like buys up whatever McMahon like leaves behind on his way out the door. They allow Triple H to stick around, but he doesn't get to be like for anybody that doesn't know, Triple H is Vince McMahon's son-in-law. Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, and Triple H are kind of like that dynasty. Like, hey, you're going to be the ones to run this when I'm gone. That essentially from Vince. And we see that time and time again when McMahon steps away. That like Triple H and Stephanie McMahon step in and like do a whole bunch of shit. Um, but when all this shit goes down with McMahon, like they don't let that happen. This company comes in and buys up what they can. They allow Triple H to stay on, but they install a board of directors instead of just being one guy at the top. I think this is how The Rock gets involved because I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he is now on that board as well. And this happens before his comeback, but essentially, they use both him coming onto the board and then put him in the ring as like kind of a way to correct the ship, right? And now remember, this is a reminder. This is as it kind of appears to the audience out here. We will never truly know how much of this shit is real, how much of it's going on behind the scenes, but it starts affecting the stuff that's going on in the ring, right? To go to the Cody Rhodes stuff specifically, like he's on this huge redemption arc. He's working his way towards WrestleMania. He's supposed to go up against Roman Reigns, and suddenly you have guys like The Rock back and John Cena back. Like there's all of these guys, these heavyweights coming back out of the water that are somehow throwing themselves into this competition. And it's just like it's not their story anymore. But how much of that is to kind of play up some shit? Because a lot of people don't remember this, but when Dwayne Johnson, when The Rock is in his character in the ring, he's a heel. He's not a good guy. He's an anti-hero in a lot of ways. He became one of those guys that became so it was like so easy to love because he had this great backstory of also coming from a legacy family with his father and stuff and like fighting towards the top. But
This
at the
is
end of
where
the
I'm
day,
going to
he was always like
interject and say, watch Young Rock. I think it's still out there available on Peacock. That series is incredible. Plus,
Yeah.
a guy that we went to college with, Brett Azar, plays the Iron Sheik, and he's excellent in the role. Sorry, I'll let you get
Phenomenal.
back to it. But
No,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and and The Rock is going through a little bit of that kind of, that thing that all of these big celebs that are in too many movies finally go through, where a bunch of people in the real world are just like, oh, I'm sick of seeing him everywhere and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden he's forcing himself back into these wrestling stories. This is not me. Again, this is just the overarching kind of narrative that's been going on in for the last like 2 months, right? Um, and so it just kind of becomes this whole thing of just like is Cody going to be able to do this? I think the hashtag that goes out there that for the last little while has been finish the story, which is like people like wanting to see Cody Rhodes finally get to the top in a way that like his family has never been able to before, and all of these people are just showing up. It turns into this huge fucking thing at WrestleMania where like The Rock and like a bunch of guys are on one side, Cody Rhodes and a bunch of the quote unquote good guys on the other. The Undertaker and fucking John Cena end up on his side, on Cody Rhodes' side, to like help him take down like these antagonistic characters that are all backing up Roman Reigns, and it just becomes this huge fucking thing, and he wins. He just fucking he's able to like break through this narrative of his family from the last like 30 some odd years of wrestling, and he is the first member of his family to hold a championship in the World Wrestling Federation or whatever it is called now.
World Wrestling
And it's
Entertainment.
like this, yeah, it's this like huge thing though that has gone on in wrestling. And like I said, like part of it is this behind the scenes stuff because of the way that like Vince McMahon has just always been a shithead in the way that he ran that company and the ways in which he like really ruined people's lives in order to like sell the stories on stage type shit. And from what we understand about the Rhodes family is they were just more victims in that line because they definitely proved themselves outside of the realm of McMahon. But whenever they were under his umbrella, they just were just getting shit on left after right. And now suddenly that dude's not there anymore, and we finally get to see one of them come to the top. Like it really feels like this huge turnaround there. And then on in the ring, it's also just been awesome because like again, it's that same story. You've been watching this family for years, in and out, get so close, but never quite being able to make it. Being able, basically, just like touching greatness every couple of years, and now finally, like Cody Rhodes is there at the top, and so it's this kind of beautiful like storytelling moment where no matter where you fall on the scale of wrestling fan, whether you're somebody that totally buys into the whole like story of what's going on with these characters, whether you're somebody that just loves the beauty and the art of what they're doing in creating these characters, or even if you're just some casual fan that has just heard that The Rock is back, and so you just are suddenly been watching for 2 months, no matter what level you've been watching at, you watched that WrestleMania and there was actually like story and heart and like emotion and all this shit. Like there were people crying at the end of that. And again, it's a scale of who's crying because the camera's on them versus who's crying because they understand the actual like meaning of what's gone on in front of them in the last 2 hours. It's a wild, wild thing in a sport that again we've just kind of stopped really. Like it's not that it doesn't still make its money. The AEW has been able to come up over the last couple of years and really make a name for themselves, being the anti Vince McMahon's essentially. There's been a huge rise in wrestling like overseas. Japanese wrestling has always been a huge deal, but it's gotten like really big in terms of the market share. Like people go seeking it out now, like in more places. It's just like wrestling is not going anywhere. It just definitely isn't the force that it was in like the late 90s, right? The early 2000s. It's not the the billion-dollar industry that it was. It's only just the few $100 million industry right now. Like woe is them. But it's one of those things that just kind of reminded you why it was as big as it was back then. So it was just crazy.
Yeah, no, I was not privy to any of that. I have had a really interesting relationship with wrestling since the last time I worked at one of the shows for them. I mean, it was a cool thing, but I was assigned to like watch Vince McMahon's wheelchair because in the storyline he was in a wheelchair, and
Right.
like I got a handshake from the guy, which was cool, but it was really one of those, wow, this is how much of it is all scripted and basically for entertainment, which is fine, but like it compounds. After being on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, it's really difficult to watch a lot of like television shows not television, game shows, because I know
Yeah.
how much production goes into it.
But we talked about this a lot when we talked about like not America's Got Talent, The Voice,
The
right? Where
Voice,
we
yeah.
were talking about how you had not realized how kind of manufactured everything really was until you would watch that at that time.
Yeah.
And
Also, The
like
Masked
I
Singer.
like that's what it
Yeah.
but the manufactured reality content, that has been kind of the secret all along that people didn't really want to talk about early on with quote unquote reality TV, right? And having issues with shows, even in the early days with things like Jerry Springer and stuff like that, of people wanting to talk about how, it was exploitive of these people on screen, and like, and then on top of that, like this idea that we insidiously hate watching blah 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 blah. There was kind of this like, there was no acknowledgement of the fact that it's not real, and some people don't care that it's not real. And I think that really kind of like warped kind of the ways in which we talked about reality TV for so long, that it's kind of hard for somebody that is not engaged with it like you to kind of realize where the story is now, because the story for so long was this idea of like it is real, and it's awful because of the ways in which it's real. You've kind of missed the point where because you weren't in the room, you just missed that point of the story where everybody that thought it was real has kind of learned it's not, and they've left. They're not in there anymore. All that's left are the people that always knew it was fake and still watched. And like, and that is an audience, and noticeably a sizable audience for a lot of these shows, on top of the fact that it's also very cheap to do a lot of this sort of shit in a way that like scripted television is not necessarily. So even if that audience has shrunk a little bit, they're still making bank. So like that idea is that anybody that's watching these shows now, The Bachelor, The Voice, so, or watching wrestling, or watching, Bravo premiered Real Housewives of Salt Lake City a few years ago, and it's all anybody still talks about out here. Like I think we're 3-4 years on that project, and like that's like I think they actually straight up filmed some episodes up the mountain, a couple of streets from us. There was a whole like blocked off area for 2 days, and a whole bunch of buses that were bussing crew members around everywhere, and they were all being very secretive about what it was. And then like 2 weeks later, there was a character from our town introduced on the show, and like it's all anybody could talk about. So everybody out here is pretty convinced that's why they had shut down that main road. And it becomes like the creation of the product, and the acknowledgement that it is a product, that it is not real, is just as much a part of like the success of these things nowadays. It comes back to this whole thing that we've talked about before with art nowadays, where people like the final product definitely is something that affects people's opinions on things, but everybody wants to know about the process as well. So this idea that we all acknowledge that wrestling is fake, and we all acknowledge that it's all been this entertainment thing, and then it becomes that conversation of when it's not fake. Like, how cool is it when those moments finally come around that are kind of real? Because there are these huge, like, in the acknowledgement that what's happening on stage is scripted, I can still very much talk about how the fight choreography is above all else. These guys do put themselves through some like heinous shit sometimes, and the ways in which they pull off certain stunts and tricks are phenomenal. And it's what makes you respect guys like Cena, like Dwayne Johnson, who did these kinds of things and like came out the other side like healthy and happy people, because that doesn't happen to a lot of these guys. And like, so in acknowledging that it is manufactured, I can then begin to appreciate it in other ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the part I loved about working those shows was watching them practice the choreography. And they are really, like, you have to be in shape. They're really doing all of the moves that you were seeing during the fights.
Mm-hmm.
It is an impressive athletic display. But, I guess I don't need the soap opera part of it. And I understand that for a lot of people, that's one of the reasons that keeps them tuning in, is to see that overarching narrative. But as somebody who likes sports have been part of my life, that was always kind of a distraction from what was going on, more than I was there for.
Yeah, so I mentioned that the company that owns UFC is the kind of the ones that came in and are propping up the wrestling right now while they, try and get their hands on it. And it's interesting, the story there with this exact kind of conversation, because for a long time, it has been really kind of sad to see the ways in which the higher ups with the UFC and MMA and all that have really started to kind of try and turn that just into wrestling with the characters and selling all that kind of shit, the marketing in that regard. Because like the original, back in my day, like I remember back when like the MMA fights or when the UFC fights were like, let's get this guy that's a champion in jiu-jitsu from this part of the world and put him up against this guy that's like a champion in Krav Maga on this part of the world and see who can come out on top. But now everybody fights the same way because everybody wants to make sure they're on even playing field, right? So you've lost that whole kind of Ultimate Warrior
You've lost the
aspect to
Street
it,
Fighter
right?
part of it. Like,
And but then in that, right, you've also lost a lot of the quote unquote characters. So the UFC, in an effort to kind of claw back to that, has turned more towards wrestling and trying to see if they can, manufacture some stuff. And it hasn't worked for them. So them coming in and being able to pick up wrestling is, I think, a really important move on their part, because I'm really interested to see how this is going to affect that side of things because of how much they've always wanted to be wrestling in creating these kinds of characters, because it does drum up an audience, right? And how you can do that, but still maintain kind of that fighting aspect that you see in the UFC, that is really kind of the more important thing. But I mean, you can go all the way back to like boxing, and for some people, there's a really big draw to the kind of fights where you have these guys talking shit about each other beforehand, right? Building up that kind of whole aspect of like
the
building
Don
up that whole
King
kind of side
era
of
of
things
boxing.
of
Like that whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, who is it? Don King there,
Don
right?
King,
Like,
yep.
and the ways
The
in which he used to
thriller
like
in
play up some of
Manila.
the more like,
Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, but would play up a lot more of the like the antagonistic relationship between the fighters makes the fight more interesting to a select group of people. If that's not you, like, but that is what kind of pushes these things further and further, and so trying to create that but still maintain some integrity in the sport is a difficult line to walk. I think with wrestling, we watched it go too far, right? UFC is kind of in that place now where it could potentially go too far if it doesn't look out. I think that there's a couple of key players in the UFC that need to get the hell out of the way, because otherwise they're just going to become the next like Vince McMahon and Triple H of this program. But without wanting to piss off, I've already pissed off enough wrestling fans. I don't need to also piss off a bunch of UFC fans. So
Yeah. Apologies to anybody who was offended by the wrestling content, but it's an interesting thing that happened.
Specifically, what I probably didn't get right
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
I'm getting
that's
at, is because the other thing is like, you got to remember, I'm also just an outside observer and all this stuff. As somebody that's just been around wrestling my whole life, there's never been a social circle I have been in that didn't have at least one dude that was super into this, if not more. When I was a kid, everybody was into it. Me and my brother even had like wrestling like pillows at home that were like
the
Macho
pillow
Man, Randy
pals that
Savage
like
and
looked
shit.
at and you wrestled with them. Like, I'm going to do a pile driver on this Macho Man Randy
Yeah,
Savage looking pillow.
this one looks like Hulk Hogan, right?
Yep.
It's yeah. We had that kind of shit growing up because everybody was really into it back then. There's VHS tapes. My dad has old VHS tapes of me and my brother going to like wrestler meet and greets and things like that. So like, it's been in my life. It's just one of those things that like, I have never been able to maintain a consistent relationship with wrestling because there's been a lot of really gross shit on the edges of it. Like this stuff with Vince McMahon this year, again, is not necessarily new information. And that's the part that sucks about it, is like, as cool as it is that they finally got in and got this guy out who's been just like straight up abusive towards people, not to mention like gross with the ways in which he's handled money and things like that. Like to think that it took this long for somebody to finally get in there and get rid of Vince McMahon is actually kind of wild for anybody that has any knowledge of wrestling. Like, he should not have been there anymore, and it speaks to people like Triple H, who like have been there for so long and have just basically played his game. What kind of person is he? Like, I don't know. So it becomes hard to watch these people, and that's why when the move for a lot of wrestlers to get out of wrestling and really try and get into movies and stuff, it's been really wild to see who succeeded and who didn't because of how they've been propped up and allowed to do things. I think we talked about this a while ago when we were talking about some early John Cena stuff, where I mean, he was doing like the Marine and things like that, and like they had to get like signed off permission from Vince McMahon in order to like do certain things. It's what made The Rock so impressive when he first made his like movie debut, is he somehow figured out, he was savvy enough with his contracting to figure out how to make movies that actually didn't fall under the like purview of like the WWE coming in and like telling him what he could and couldn't do on screen and things like that. And it was such a rare thing that was why it was so impressive that he was doing what he was doing. And I feel like anybody that doesn't know that kind of side of it would look at like the meteoric rise of The Rock as like a film star and be like, I don't understand what the appeal is with this guy, because there is an ego there. There is a sense, like when he talks about Black Adam and talks about the ways in which he really wanted to control the narrative, both on screen and off, about that, and how he really felt like he had some thoughts that would really lead to the DCEU and all this stuff. And like people can try and blame that movie all they want, but that was the last DC movie that made a profit, and it took a while for it to, but it did eventually, comparatively to anything afterwards. And like people want to talk about how like him and his ego like took over that movie and ruined a whole bunch of stuff and blah 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 blah. But like his ego and his attitude and his way of pushing is also what made him so successful early on. This is not a new characterization for him. He didn't get famous and then suddenly grow a big head. Like he's always pushed in this way, and it's always been really interesting because he was up against the evil empire that was the WWE, but now he's so far removed from that like who is he now, right? And it's showing in a lot of the ways in which people are kind of taken aback. Whereas you have guys like John Cena who played the rules, did a whole bunch of weird WWF like movies, like a la The Marine at first, and it took a while for him to kind of build up that ability to step out of those contracts. And because I think there was a little bit more of a slower burn with him, there's a little bit less of that kind of like who the hell is this guy attitude, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. But especially as we're like only a few weeks away from Brendan Fraser History Month, we definitely discuss that with something like the Scorpion King and how those would go on to be WWE films after the first one, like in that weird way that like that was part of it. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, wrestling, and it's just one of those things. You know what it is? As I've been sitting here thinking about it, and I have touched the WWE, and I know that has had an effect, but also in Coventry, Rhode Island, we had a big backyard wrestling league, and I'm going to say problem at the end, and anybody who was a part of it, they can come in and they can do it. But I remember, like, there was a backyard. I remember the backyard. I had been there for matches, and you know, they were on public access. People kind of knew about it. And then there was the afternoon that they lit one of the guys on fire. And I know his name, but I won't share his name. We became very friendly after this, and I don't really feel like blowing up his spot, smoking him out. Sorry, I'm an asshole. But him getting lit on fire got like the police involved and shut that whole thing down. And it was this weird sort of moment where like, they weren't necessarily celebrities, but like you knew who they were because of their connection to this backyard wrestling thing that was going on in the town. And the way that
I mean, this was at a time, a time when backyard wrestling, tapes were being sold on late night. YouTube was really kind of in its early stages, and one of the very first kind of big waves on YouTube was like backyard wrestling videos and shit like that. And so like they were pretty big fish in a relatively small pond, but you can't deny that they were some big fish.
Oh yeah, no.
Coventry, Rhode Island.
Coventry, Rhode Island. Like we were there, and this is pre-YouTube. Like there was no YouTube. It was only we have this public access show where you can see the matches. And they like got in trouble and fined.
when we were in college, like there was a YouTube presence, early YouTube presence of some shit that were people that were just down the road from us. So I mean, it was definitely still a part of the ethos then too.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about when it came to us and that guy was lit on fire and they were fined for broadcasting that over the airwaves, and like it sort of made wrestling in the city of Coventry, the town of Coventry, like a taboo subject. So like it's also one of those things where like I understand why it sort of fell out of favor with people that I knew at the time. I'm just trying to understand like where that disconnect came from, and I think it's two-pronged for me. It is seeing that like, well, we can't encourage wrestling with the kids, or even if we're talking about it, like we could get in trouble because they're afraid we're going to be the next one to light somebody on fire. And then it was actually working events and getting to see behind the curtain, and that like kind of breaking the magic for me. And then like I used to go to like WrestleMania parties, And that'd be fine, right? Because I'm there for the party. I'm not really there for the event. I don't care about
It's like
the
going
thing.
to a Super Bowl party.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like that's why I don't really like to go to Super Bowl parties because I care about the game. So like I want to actually be able to pay attention to the game. I'm not there for the party. I'll go to an after party. I love a Super Bowl after party. But like WrestleMania, I don't really care about the event, so I don't mind like socializing during the like warm up matches and things like that. But the reason why I stopped going to those is that I would be like, he's worked with the WWE, and it got like kind of tiring having to talk about that experience and what it was like at those events where I'm just trying to like have a good time. So like I can trace out my timeline of it. But for everybody who does enjoy wrestling, and I do have friends, you listen to the show, thank you for listening, and thank you for any conversation we've ever had about wrestling. I love sharing it with you. There's a reason why, like, I'm not connected to it as deeply as I was or could have been, but I am super happy to see that the Cody Rhodes story did get its ending, and it was the ending that everybody wanted.
I mean, it's the kind of shit that they will make a movie about in like 10, 15 years. Some young kid who's really going to want to dig into like a biopic of some kind. They'll do a Rhodes family biopic in it, and the ending story will be Cody like winning this championship, and then like the realization of just like how much that family has really kind of given themselves over to this sport and whether or not it was worth it. Right now, I'm sure it definitely feels like it was like, and like more power to him. But yeah, it was a pretty wild moment in sports that, like, if you weren't looking, you probably missed it.
Yeah, that again, and I wasn't looking, and I did miss it. I'm living proof that happened. All right, so let's do this weird review. A review on an audio medium. That's the thing. Sejohn, do you know what it is in 2024? Do you know what 2024 is? It's a lot of things.
I mean, it's the year. What do we?
It's the 40th anniversary of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Okay.
1984, yep. May of 1984, the first volume hit comic book shops with its 300 issue run that sold out almost immediately. Side story, because whatever, it's my podcast, right? It's our podcast. We can do whatever we want with it. I was at acoustic karaoke a couple of weeks ago, and maybe I told this story, and if I did, I'm sorry. But the girl there was like, I'm as old as the Ninja Turtles to the day, and it was her birthday that she was celebrating there, and I'm like, well, no, it's still 2 months to the day that the Ninja Turtles happened. But you didn't expect me to be in the bar. I let her have her fun, is what I'm going to say about it.
I was gonna say, I hope you didn't just actually a girl on her birthday.
No, I would never. Okay. It was the voice in my head was like, we know, but we're gonna let her have fun
on her birthday.
Yeah,
if that's
right?
what we're talking about.
Yeah, no. I'm not gonna be that jerk. But it was the thing that went through my mind, and I'm like, yeah, but people can have fun. So like, you know what that is? That's growth for Devon Decker. Because there was a time in my life where I'd be
so proud.
Yeah, right? Like. But since it's the 40th anniversary, we're seeing a lot of things. And it's weird that, like, Ninja Christmas this year, we're not going to have a Ninja Turtles thing. But it is also kind of testimony to the fact that the 10-year anniversary didn't mean as much as it does in, like, the 90s as it does now in the 2020s. Heck, something is celebrating its 5-year anniversary this year. They're like, come see it to celebrate the 5th anniversary. And I'm like, that's nothing, right? Like, that's a weird thing to celebrate. We're just, like, looking for things. Super Mario 35 is kind of what, like, I'm trying to zero in on, right? Because we're going to be at the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers soon, and, like, what are they going to do to celebrate it is my question, right? Is the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers 3, are we going to get a Super Mario Brothers 3 35? We'll talk about that a little bit later down the road. Sejohn and I are looking into something that's going on that's kind of like that. But back to the Ninja Turtles. It's the 40th anniversary of the Ninja Turtles, and everybody seems to be getting in on the, like, it's the 40th anniversary. Playmates, the guys who did the original Turtle toys, they're doing an original sketch version of the brothers as toys. They're doing, like, a better, like, high resolution, better articulation version of the original Playmates figures that released to celebrate the 40th. But one of the first things I've gotten related to the 40th anniversary, Theory 11 is the name of the company. They do playing cards, and they just recently released the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles playing cards for the 40th anniversary. And
their bread and butter is doing like gimmicky cards. Like I think there's like a Black Panther set you can get at Target right now, and there was like a Harry Potter set or something like that they put out that was really popular. But it's the world of playing cards it's an interestingly specific hobby. It's like finding out like people that are really into like fountain pens, and if you talk about the wrong company, they'll stab you in the neck with their with their nib. But there's just like the world of playing cards is a hard world to break into, and so it's a Theory 11. From what I understand, or from what I'm seeing in the wild of their shit, is their hook to get in is they're the ones that will market like your shit. Like they'll put out a run of just like specific movies or old TV shows. I think they did like a Stranger Things deck or something like that.
Yeah,
for
so
Netflix
I'm on
a
their
couple years
website
back.
right now because I wanted to make sure I had the name correct for who did the cards. And the related products to the TMNT deck are Outcast playing cards, Wonka playing cards, specifically from the Timothée Chalamet movie, Rick and Morty, Stranger Things, and Warner Brothers 100th anniversary playing cards, 1000th anniversary.
Yeah.
No fucking way, the way they're just burning through content. But yeah, so I got the cards and I wanted to open them on the show and talk about like what makes them Ninja Turtle playing cards. Because, that's fun. Something visual for the people at home.
Yeah, we're going to do an unboxing audio.
We've done crazier things and gotten away with it. Sejohn,
you should post a couple of them in the Discord.
I think I will do that afterwards. So yeah, if you make sure you join our Discord, the Saraport podcast Discord. If you want to see some of the photos of these, they will be going up after this episode has gone live. So what do you think the Jokers are? Just
I was gonna say like your ace cards have to be pizza, because if it's any character, people would lose their shit. Like you'd have a certain fan base that's excited, and everybody else would be pissed off that they were not the ace. Or I guess Shredder. Like if you were gonna make somebody the ace and you wanted everybody to be pissed, at least we have to be the bad guy. As far as the Jokers go,
for the ace, I would make it April. Every ace would just be April in a different outfit.
Okay.
I just like that's it. But we're not there yet. Right now we're focusing on the Jokers. But we're talking about.
Well, see, on the one hand, I think I'm trying to think of like goofier characters that it would be like. What's the mech there? The
Metalhead.
Metalhead, yeah, like Metalhead would be a fun one.
The pop figure you got me for Christmas. Thank you.
Maybe the frogs. But on the other hand, doing it as like really wild, like fun hero pulls, like Usagi would be a phenomenal like Joker to have, right?
That'd be cool. But I mean, I don't know if like Stan Sakai you'd want to have to try to get him involved as well as like Surge.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Like when you're talking about, you start to talk about characters that are really more, but probably I would guess in that realm, like Metalhead or something, like maybe bodysuit, whatever Krang's bodysuit guy's name
android?
is, I forget. Yeah, the android.
So the Jokers are just pizzas. It's a pizza with 2 slices missing and a couple of cans of cola, which is fun. So now hold on, I want to get these all separated out the right way.
I mean, like that's like the trick, right? Is like you want to make them like important cards, like with the same with like talking about the ace. You want to make them important cards, but you don't necessarily want to assign a decision we value this character in this way. Like you just don't want to be doing that with them. It's a really wild thing when you're just talking about a fucking deck of cards, right? But like whoever the face cards are means a whole hell of a lot compared to who the 2 is, right? Who's your deuces? I bet you it's just 2 Psy, isn't it?
Well, that'd be great. So okay. There are 2 other additional cards as I've gone through. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Premium Edition playing cards, Theory 11, and then just like TMNT playing cards, and that actually has Leonardo on it. He's the one that's like on that card as well, which is interesting. So I'm gonna keep Hearts for last because I already know the answer to it. Which one do you want to look at first from those, Sejohn? Spades, diamonds, or clubs?
So is each suit a different turtle? Is that what it is?
So each suit, well, that is the first disappointing thing that I will say about this. If I were doing this set of cards, the colors of each of these would be the colors of the brothers popularized in the 1987. It wouldn't be 2 black, 2 red. It would be a blue, a purple, an orange, and a red. But they did not do that. So I don't know. I haven't really looked at it. I just opened them. So I will see what happens. So clubs, spades, or diamonds?
Let's do clubs.
Okay. So for clubs, the ace of clubs is the turtle blimp. And then all of the number cards are just number cards. The jack of clubs is Orokusaki himself, the shredder. The queen of clubs, who do you think that's going to be?
Shredder's daughter?
It is Karai. Though not originally his daughter in the Mirage comics, has been made his daughter since the 2003 TMNT reboot that had a heavy assistance from Peter Laird. And then who do you think that makes the king of clubs?
I don't know. I'm running out of characters in that case.
It's Leonardo. So it looks like the king is going to be one of the brothers based on the clubs. So that's,
and then the ace is the blimp, you said.
Yeah, the ace is the blimp. All right. So then diamonds. Let's do diamonds. Let's alternate it. The ace of diamonds is the turtle's van. All the cards are regular. What do you think the jack of diamonds is?
So is this Splinter?
No, it's Krang and his android body. Krang is not in the chest part of it. He's on the shoulder. And then there's the body. Who do you think the queen of diamonds is?
At this point, it could be fucking Rita Repulsa. You have really gotten down to the bottom of my knowledge.
That's fine. It's Alopex, the snow fox from the IDW continuity, which is interesting because everything up to this point has pretty much been like 87. I know Karai never showed up in 87, but she was a big deal in 84. So then to do something from the 2011 series, interesting. And then the King of Diamonds, which brother do you think that is?
That one's going to be Donnie.
That is Donatello. You are correct.
Yeah.
So nice job, Sejohn. All right, so spades. The spade card is just like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the spade. And then each one of the brothers they've somehow put the spade into 4 little quadrants. And each of them has one of the brothers in it. Numbers. Jack of spades, Sejohn.
Wait, so sorry, but to be clear, the first 2 aces were vehicles. This third ace is just them?
It's just them in silhouette in the spade. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Not the best. What would you want to do?
Sorry, but who's the jack on this one? So is this one? No, wait. So I bet you that one's. So, is this the doctor there? What's his nuts?
Oh, Baxter Stockman?
Baxter Stockman.
Considering Baxter Stockman was black in the original 1984 comics, that'd be very racist. So no, it's not Baxter Stockman as the Jack of Spades.
Okay.
It is Splinter.
So then who is it?
This is where Splinter comes in.
Oh, this is Splinter. I was thinking Splinter was going to be on the last deck with like Raph as the king. All right. Keep going.
Who do you think the Queen of Spades is?
Is this April?
This is April, which makes sense because she was originally African American in the comic books. No, but it is the redhead one with the yellow jumpsuit. It's very much 1987 April O'Neil. But you know, everybody gets upset whenever they make her black in something like Mutant Mayhem or in Rise of the TMNT. But the woman that she was based on, that Kevin Eastman was dating, because let's be facing it, all art is made to help people get laid, right? That's the secret of art. I kid in a lot of ways, but Futurama made that joke, and it's not exactly the least prevalent thing. That April woman that Kevin drew into his hyper popular martial artist Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book, she was also black. So like that's who she was based on. And I'm tired of people saying that it's like a big deal. This is me voicing some of my problems with the fandom. I'm just gonna say it. Who's the King of Spades, Sejohn?
So, was it Leo or Mikey on the first one?
Leo was on the first one. So
Then it's Mikey on this
it
one.
is Michelangelo, and he's looking
Yeah.
good. It's really interesting how like that is one of the Suicide Kings in a regular set of cards, and so he has his nunchucks like behind his head. So it's kind of aping it. I'm really impressed with. Definitely go to the Discord to see the photos I've taken of each of the cards, because like it's impressive how they took the turtles and made them like the kings in a regular set of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Which now brings us to the hearts, and the Ace of Hearts is a skateboard with a turtle head like design on the bottom of the deck.
See, I'm down. I'm down on the skateboard. I'm down on the other two vehicles. I don't understand making that random last one the last one the team. I mean, in the terms of the deck suit from what you described, like the suit deck that you described, like it makes sense because if it's Splinter and it's April and then the team is up at the top, like that makes sense. But in the grand scheme of the rest of this whole deck, it doesn't quite fit, and that's pissing me off.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk it through with you, is because I knew that there might be some. I'm really super surprised by Alapex. Alapex is something that I do not understand the usage of her at all. But then and I think she's a fine character. It's just that like 87 is the one that has the most nostalgia. Or if this is for the 40th anniversary, if it were all people from that first volume of Mirage books.
So is this suit, this final suit, is it Bebop, Rocksteady, Raph, and then the skateboard?
No, it is not.
Ah,
Who do you think the Jack
shame.
of Hearts is?
Well, I told you. I just thought it was Bebop
Okay,
or
right.
Rocksteady.
Okay, so I'm telling you it's not that. I'm going to give you another one. You are correct that the King of Hearts is Raphael, which I love for various reasons. But if you want to take another shot at the Jack, knowing that Raphael is the king.
Right, and you've already written off Baxter Stockman, and we already, so like I don't know who else I would call in at this point, really.
I'm a little surprised. Casey Jones,
Okay.
CJ himself, as the Jack. Who do you think the Queen of Hearts is?
Well, if Casey is the Jack, is it what's her name? The woman turtle.
The woman turtle? So like Venus or
Venus or Mona Lisa, right?
No, Mona Lisa is a lizard. And that's who I was expecting, I'll be honest with you. 1987, Raphael meets his match. It's Mona Lisa, the college grad student mutated into a salamander after being exposed to toxic water in the submarine of Dr. Black. It's not her. It's Jenica. Jenica being the fifth turtle introduced in like the 100th issue of the IDW continuity.
Is she the one that was like stitched together Frankenstein?
No, that's how Venus de Milo exists in the IDW comic books. She was a frog mutant that was semi Dr. Rhodes, semi Dr. Frankenstein to look like a turtle to like ingratiate herself with the brothers. No, Jenica is the She-Hulk of the IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles continuity. She received a blood transfusion from one of the brothers, and that made her mutate into a turtle.
Mm.
This one, as like surprised as I was by Alapex, you're not going to use Ninjara because a lot of people don't know who Ninjara is. Even though that's clearly what Alapex is based on. The fact that she is a fox, the fact that she dated Raphael, all of those traits that were Ninjara's that were then supplanted onto the original Fox mutant in the IDW continuity. But seeing Jenica, that always hits a little weird, especially since like part of this is to celebrate the 40th anniversary. And like, it's always been Kevin Eastman who's like, let's do Venus de Milo. Let's do a fifth turtle who is a female. April O'Neil in the 11th special of the Archie TMNT Adventure Comics becomes a turtle. And like, it's a thing that they've always been trying to put in there. But Peter Laird has been pretty like, no, my whole thing with the turtles is that they don't get to procreate. So there can be no females. I know that's weird, but like,
a weird opinion on the place of women in the world, dude, but okay.
Well, no, that is a weird opinion. I had never even considered that. More the fact that like they only have this one chance to make their effect on the world felt. But even that's like
Right.
gone out the window at the end of The Last Ronin, where they say like this was always the story we planned, and then that ends with the new turtles, who all of their names are one in different languages, and two of them are females. So like I'm glad that we've evolved past that, but yeah. But I don't know. Jenica's like one of those characters that I wouldn't have expected to see in here. Would have expected maybe a Mona Lisa. I would have been fine if it was Bebop and Rocksteady. Their lack of representation here is a little strange as well, considering like the blimp is a 1987 thing. The van is a 1987 thing. It's cool that this borrows from all 40 years of TMNT, but I mean, some choices that make me go, for better or for ill. But yeah, that's them. So you can see.
And like, yeah, and also weird lack of acknowledgement of the films or video games, which are like a huge part of the Turtles. Like to not even like nod to that stuff is weird.
Yeah, I agree. It's I mean, I'm really happy I have them. They're nice cards. They're gonna live in the Say studio, so that if I ever like need a playing card, those are the cards that I'm using. But yeah, I don't know. I'm happy I did it. I'm happy I jumped in. But, you know, going through with you here, a little surprised by some of the choices that are present, especially as someone who knows it. I'm very happy Karai made the cut. And it's very much 2012 Karai, which is also cool in terms of continuity. I don't know. It's been a whole thing. But it's kind of the first thing that I purchased that is me celebrating the 40th years of the TMNT. And with Target's Haulathon having kicked off this past Friday, I know it's not going to be the last of them. I don't know. It's not like I'm disappointed in it. I'm a little surprised. But that's like me with Teenage Mutant Turtles all of the time.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this with 35, Mario 35 and stuff. I have a really hard time getting on board with some of these weirder, nonsensical, like if the number 40 meant something in the Turtles verse that everybody was like, all right, 40, like if when Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy turned 42, the amount of people out there that were probably like, oh, the 42nd anniversary, that's a good bit. I can get in on that, right? Like 40, what does 40 mean? 40 is nothing. I'll give you 50. I'm down for a 50. I'm down for 100.
There's
right?
a reason we're watching The Godfather Part 2 in December this year. And that's because it's 50 years old, right?
You know,
you like
we are also somewhat guilty of this in speaking of like special episodes because we picked like arbitrarily like 30 sometimes, but part of that is just more just because of where we are in our lives 30 years ago lines up with talking about us like seeing it for the first time, right?
Right. I mean,
so there is like a method to that madness. Celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Turtles, while fun, is not the thing that's like I'm not gonna put something on my shelf personally for the 40th anniversary. 10 more years comes around and it's the 50th anniversary, and I get a hold of some comic edition or some copy of the movie or something. Like I 100% that I will display proudly because that's something to talk about. But like much like I didn't understand why we were celebrating 35 years with Mario, like I don't quite understand why we're doing 40 for this.
I mean, to link it back together to the eclipse and why everybody was losing their mind about the eclipse, I think on some level, and this is morbid alert with Devon Decker, I think it's because there's a fear that the people who are responsible for these things might not make it to that big banner like moment in terms of the 50th anniversary.
Whoa. And I can respect that feeling as well. But in that case, live every fucking day like that, then, right? Like we can't. I don't know. Maybe that's an impossible ask on my part. But like that idea that like we if that's the way we want to feel about these things, then we should be showing this love and respect every moment we can, right? Like not just on like arbitrary 40th anniversary. Like designate this one day to care about things so that we can take the other 364 days this year and not give a shit about it. Is like not the right way to go about it.
Right. I agree. I don't know. I mean, I think where it also comes from is like what you said. For a lot of people, they were kids when it happened and now they're adults. And yes, just as much the 30th anniversary would have done that for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I think 40, because it is sort of that like midlife milestone for humans as we are currently, right, in our lifespans, in terms of our lifespans. You're over the
Middle Age
hill.
Mutant Ninja Turtles, Middle Age Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Right. It's a thing, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's why. I think for a lot of people who were like 10 years old when this stuff first came out and were buying the toys and playing with the toys, but you say you should live every day like that. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has weirdly been celebrated since the beginning. I can't think of a time where like there was zero Ninja Turtles product out there in the world, be it toys, comics, television, movies. They have been able to remain relevant for a very long time, which is actually
I also like, and I don't want to be like shitting on anybody's parade either.
No,
If
no,
you
no,
want
I
to
don't.
get in on this party, like, go ahead, get on this party. Any excuse to party is a fucking great excuse to party. It's just more that like when it comes to where am I going to spend like my emotions and my money, like my capital in this world, like I this is not where I'm going to aim it this time around. Is all.
Right. And I think that people have called that out. Like I had mentioned earlier that Playmates is going to do like hyper articulated versions of the original Turtles. So like the 1987 versions, they came out in 1988. With the like different skin tones and Leonardo with the big side grin and Michelangelo with the mouth closed and all of that stuff. And I might be off on that, and I apologize if I am. But a lot of people have already commented that it feels like a weird cash in on the part of Playmates for the 40th anniversary, and that some of the choices they're making with it don't make sense. Like they're going to have textured skin. Like they kind of look like orange peels in the pictures that have been released.
Okay,
And that's weird. Or like the original, as cool as it'll be to have a set of that original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sketch and the brothers looking that way, released from Playmates, and it's going to build a whole diorama and everything with that. Like they don't look as good as when I think it was Mondo did versions of the first sketch Turtles and made them available. Like
but Mondo's also a phenomenal company, so that's hard.
Yes, but it feels like Playmates rushing to make some money on an arbitrary anniversary. Yes, it's a big round number, but
and this is all been about how many toys can we sell, even from back in the day with the cartoons, right? Like that's that, like they are part of that huge machine that we always talk about of let's pump a cartoon out that can sell the toy, that can sell another cartoon, that can sell the toy, that can sell the cereal, that can sell the toy. Like there's just there has always been this cycle with this brand for sure. And so like again, this is not me telling people like don't celebrate the 40. Like if this is with like a thing that you want to be a part of, there's 100 reasons why you like thousands, infinite reasons why you would want to be in on this. It's just that as somebody that considers themselves a Turtles fan, there isn't anything about this particular anniversary that has me like raring to go out and buy a bunch of shit from Target. It just is. Yeah. It's not working on me this time. It'll work on me in the future. I am not saying I am immune to this shit. As I sit here staring at all of like my Mario toys that I adore, and like I was thinking you were talking about things like the texture of the plastic and that being like a huge deal for people and things like that, and like I could shit on that if I wanted, but I have those exact same feelings about the new Donkey Kong toys that have been coming out compared to the Mario ones that I've been collecting, and about how I'm kind of disappointed in the ways in which the Donkey Kong ones just like feel cheaper. Like they've got more articulation to them, and they're bigger. They're a little bit bigger than the Mario ones that I've been buying. But like in that, the plastic is just not the kind of plastic I like. The way that the light hits them, the way that the colors look on them and stuff, like don't make them look as pleasing to me. So I just don't think I'm gonna buy the new Donkey Kong toys because of all of that, which is, you know, kind of wild because growing up, as much as I loved Mario, Donkey Kong was my jam. And the fact that I'm collecting Mario toys and not Donkey Kong toys kind of says something about like where where those series are at, where those toys are at and all of that sort of stuff.
I think earlier this
week, I get it. I get the crazy collecting aspect of it. I'm not in on this particular craze this time around, I think.
Yeah. I think I sent you a photo of the Donkey Kong toys that I had gotten. And the only reason that I purchased those is that they were knocked down to $4.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're alone in this feeling that there's just something a little bit off about them. And
They
it's
just look a little bit cheaper than the Mario ones. The Mario ones have this. I think I talked really early on about a comic I got. It was one of the first ones I ever bought in the Mario line. And there's this cute little detail where if you flip him over, he's got his feet under his robe, which you'll never see if you have him standing up on as he's meant to stand up. There's no reason to ever look under the robe, but like it's there, and that's cool, right? And that's just a wild little piece of detail work that, of course, if you're trying to make a cheaper toy, it's going to be one of the first things you get rid of, right? If, of course, I understand why like companies make the decisions they have to make sometimes in that regard, but vote with your dollar. That's how capitalism works. And like that's just if that's where they want to skimp out on like the characters designs and things like that, then I'm just not gonna keep buying those toys. I'll keep looking for the Mario ones if they keep putting them out. They've got some really good ones out nowadays.
I just
I hope
picked
that we
up
get some
a
fun stuff
Lemmy.
from.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I picked up a nice big Lemmy, and I had a
I
little
would love
Lemmy,
to see
but
some stuff from Wonder. If they can get some if they can get Elephant Mario out or something like that, or if I can get myself a really good Pink Toad or anything like from Mario Wonder, like I'd be down on all that.
yeah, I've been looking for a Yellow Toad toy, which I know they have because a friend of mine's son has the figure. And like Yellow Toad is who I played through Mario Wonder as first because it was that sort of like early access that I had, and I didn't want to play through it as Mario. And like I now have this weird affinity for Yellow Toad, and I'd like to have some sort of plastic representation of him to have on my desk to show that off. Like looking at those Donkey Kong toys again, I sent you the photos on like the 6th. The Diddy Kong is bigger than Donkey Kong, and that's weird to me. I love that Diddy Kong is as big as he is and as articulated as he is, but the Donkey Kong in the same line does not feel as big because of how you have to pose him. And it's just weird. It's you're not wrong. But I think, vote with your dollar. I'm pretty sure that's why these are now on clearance.
Yeah.
And the way it is. The same with like some of the Mario figures that you were talking about. These are all by Jack Specific, by the way, just to shout out the company that makes the toys. The lesser known characters is what I'm going to say, kind of quotation marks. So not your Mario, your Luigi, but like Boom Boom or Spike or like any of the like villains or Bowser's minions. Generally, those end up going up on clearance as well because they're not selling. People don't want to have like a Shy Guy figure. I mean, I do. There are some people who do, but when it comes down to it and they got to clear the shelves, those are the ones that you're going to see on clearance.
I bet like Piranha Plant and Goomba do all right, right? But like when you start to get into some of the weirder ones, I definitely can see them not being huge sells.
Yeah. I'm really looking for a Morton and a Roy. They did them both in the 3.5 scale, and they're like, we're never going to do them again because there's so much plastic in them, even at that small scale. And like one man on eBay seems to have cornered the market on Roy. So you can't get him for less than like $600. It's ridiculous.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. While we're talking about video game figures, have you seen any of the Jada toy stuff? They're a relatively new player in the toy market.
Yeah. Jada, I really like the Jada line. They had, was it a Fast and the Furious promotion?
They did do a Fast and the Furious one as well, yeah.
Yeah. No, they've got some really good stuff. They're more higher end stuff though, right?
That's the crazy thing. That Fast and Furious one was, but right now they're working with Capcom to deliver figures, and these are my fingers being crossed as I put into the ethos.
They did a Boo-Berry figure that I really
Yes,
liked.
they did do Boo-Berry, yeah. That was an SDCC exclusive, yeah. Glow in the dark, and they did Count Chocula and that. They did a Chester Cheetah as well. So like food mascots, but all those figures are only $25. And now for Capcom, they've done like 5 Street Fighter figures and they've done 5 Mega Man figures. The Mega Man figures are the Mega Man figures that, like, as a kid, you always dreamed of having.
For reference, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about, just specifically, let's focus on the ones that I can remember, the cereal mascot ones, right? Where like Boo-Berry, they're not much bigger or much more going on than, say, a pop figure. And so, like, $25 for that, when, like, I can get a Boo-Berry pop figure for, like, $11 if I go to the mall right now. Like, there is a little bit of a higher end feel to that price, I will say.
Right, but like when I hear higher end toys, I'm thinking NECA, where like the lowest price figure they sell is $35. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
okay,
of
so
like
maybe they're more like
Mondo,
mid-range
Hot
then.
Toys, like high end in terms of action figures, MDLX, like
Yeah,
fifty
you can get up there.
dollars
You can
is
get into
it?
the
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands if you're not careful, for
So the
sure.
fact
Yeah.
that Jada Toys, what they're producing at the price they're producing it at, is very impressive. Like even that Booberry that you talk about, he comes with a stand so that he looks like he's floating. He comes with a
Yeah.
bunch of accessories like a box of Booberry cereal.
I love the way that they captured the whole see-through kind ofness, like the
Yeah.
opaqueness of him. Yeah, they do a really cool job of really translating the 2D figure to the 3D. That's it's a really cool style that I like.
I mean, not to be this guy, but as the guy with 2 boxes of Fruit Brute in the studio with me, I will get excited about that when they do a Fruit Brute figure. I'll get excited if they do a Yummy Mummy figure. I didn't
Yeah.
really like Ghoulia, the like candy apple caramel zombie girl that was introduced to this monster cereal line last year, but I'd like want a figure of her. Like those, I like those like kind of one-off ones. That core
Yeah.
trio of Chocula, Frankenberry, and Booberry, they don't really move the needle for me anymore, right?
Fuck right off.
I'm just being honest about that though. But they've done the Mega Man figures. Those are only $20 a figure. Don't pay more than that. And they've done Mega Man, Iceman, and Fireman. They come with stands so you can make it look like they're firing off their projectiles. They come with interchangeable hands and things so that Fireman can look like he's shooting fire or just empty cannons. Like those are really nice. But the Street Fighter ones, everyone has been losing their mind about. And I haven't been able to find them in stores. The only one I was able to get my hands on for a while was Fei Long, who's from like Ultra Street Fighter 2, the like third iteration that have released on the Super Nintendo. I think it's
Am I remembering like a Facebook ad for like a one-off bad Ryu that they did or something
they
like
did.
that?
Jada Toys did an Evil Ryu
Evil
from
Ryu, yeah.
the oh god, I think that's like later on in the series. That was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. And
That's
I
what
was
it was.
able to get a copy of that. I do have that figure somewhere in the house. All my collectibles are just all packed up right now because we've been renovating and all this other bullshit. But so Fei Long was the only one I ever put hands on because a friend had it. Wasn't super impressed. And that's because Fei Long is basically just Bruce Lee. Like he's not like crazy sort of like things that he does. Like he's just kind of, I've always kind of joked that he feels like a Virtua Fighter in the world of Street Fighter in terms of what he does. Like yeah. So I wasn't impressed with that. But this past weekend, after we recorded last Sunday, went out to Target and I found a Dalsim, the Indian mystic who uses Yoga Fire and Yoga Flame. That figure is impressive. And you can pull off the arms and replace them with stretchy arms that have a nice wire in them so you can do all sorts of Dalsim moves with him. I'm impressed by it. I'm going to say I'm impressed. And that was $25. And his wave mate is M. Bison, and he is as big and burly as the final boss of a fighting game should be. And he's also just still $25. They're not charging some sort of increased cost because he has more plastic in him. Like he could easily be $35. Super 7, that was the other brand I couldn't think of. Their figures start at $50, no matter what. And I know that because there was a Snarf figure that I like wanted to get for you, but when I saw that it was $50 and it's just fucking Snarf the size of Snarf, like I'm like, that doesn't seem worth it. And that's to offset the fact that like a deluxe Mumra, some Mumra with all of his armor and stuff on him, was in that same wave at the same price. So like the idea is you're going to buy all 4 of these for $200 and then, but like Mumra's like $70 where Snarf is like $30 of that $200. But then sold alone, the MSRP is $50. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Toy collecting is such a weird thing. And I just, it really goes into this whole like our generation. Like they want us to be Toys R Us kids. They don't want us to grow up.
Yeah.
And it's
the problem is that they then fucked over all the companies that were helping us stay that way. So now people are waking up and they're just like, oh no.
Yeah,
when
it's
we they don't know what the future looks like anymore because they've gone and pissed off a bunch of people that have potential money to buy from them. Whatever.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, those Super 7 toys, they had the Simpsons license and they lost it. They had G.I. Joe and it looks like they're losing it. They had all these licenses. They made these really nice toys. But the fact that if I wait 4 months, they'll be on clearance on Amazon for like a more reasonable $25 to $30 as opposed to that baseline 50. Like, there's no value to keep producing those things. We're seeing it right now. I don't know if you go to the toy section when you go to like a Target, but there are no like Hasbro toys ever on the shelves in Target in 2024. And one of the reasons is they overbought in 2023, ended up having to sell that off to like Ross Dress for Less and Ollie's Bargain Outlet. So these toys with an MSRP of $25 are selling for $5. So people were like, well, I'm not going to buy at Target or Walmart. I'll just wait until they're like $5 at a friggin' outlet store. And now Target and Walmart, because of all those times where they couldn't sell anything, they're not ordering those toys.
Yeah, I mean Hasbro's all over the fucking place anyway because like they also the whole other side of their business is on fire right now because they got in bed with Wizards of the Coast and like at a time when D&D was like at the largest in popularity that it had ever been in its entire like existence. And now suddenly Wizards of the Coast is like speed running how fast can we ruin this relationship with the amount of people that they've pissed off over the last like 2 years in terms of like sending federal Pinkerton agents again, like after like kids selling magic cards and shit like that and like all sorts of weird shit that they've been doing, pissing off the D&D community with like rule changes and tournament like rules and shit like that they've been laying the law down on and that people are really pissed about. And like so they're also not doing great on that side either. So I don't know how much longer Hasbro has for this world really.
I mean, I've been feeling that way for a couple of years. I mean, they've owned Wizards of the Coast since 1999. And it's just like recently where like Dungeons and Dragons became that big business with all the podcasts that were doing like tabletop, like episodes, like episodic weekly things.
But real play shows and stuff like that. Where like it's not just like these are based on characters from D&D, but straight up you're going to listen to as rolled dice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like they wanted to get some of that money, but then weirdly they make the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I don't remember the subtitle of it. The one with Chris Pine. It was excellent. The movie was excellent. I loved it. I couldn't tell you like the golden something or other. Maybe I feel like gold is in the title.
Hey, hold on. You keep talking. I'll look it up. Don't worry.
They do that movie and it's excellent, right? They really enjoy it, but then they sell off that studio.
Honor Among Thieves.
Honor Among Thieves, yeah. That like the Golden Archive was what they called the toy line associated with it. And those, though, God, the Dungeons and Dragons toys were the lowest quality toys I've seen from Hasbro in my life. And that includes some of the toys that I've freaking seen just like in my lifetime, right? Like as a kid when toys were not big business. Like those Dungeons and Dragons toys, you'd open up the box and they would have the arms pre-broken for you. So, who frick knows? Meanwhile, NECA is also making toys in that, and they're some of the most perfect, like, reimaginings, sort of remastered versions of Dungeons and Dragons toys that existed when we were, like, infants. Toys that, like, my uncle had that I later inherited from him. Like Strongheart. Which I can show that. But it's been like a really, you're not wrong. Like all those companies, they want to keep us eternally like in this nostalgic bubble. So that's why they re-release these toys. That's why Mattel is re-releasing the Street Sharks for their 40th anniversary. But maybe 94 of those came out. Pretty sure I was still living in Templeton when I got my first Street Shark. But who knows?
But then having that other side where you're then also attacking your fans, like really seems counter to the whole fucking thing, right? I mean, like look at Nintendo and like the bullshit that goes on with them and all the stuff that's been happening with them shutting down emulation and stuff like that. And like there's this really wild like kind of thing where they went after a particular emulator because of the ways in which they were using like NES like ROMs, like the ways they were getting them was really kind of shady, and like what they were doing with them. And so like they found that foothold and they jumped on that. And then like they can't find that same foothold with other places or other things, so they're not doing that. And people are just on the fucking edge now, like trying to wait and see what the next move is from Nintendo. And I don't think one's gonna come. Like I think they shut down a couple of very key groups that were doing some stuff with emulation and ROM hacks and things like that because they had very specific things that they could go after them for that just like these other groups just aren't doing. So like I think they're okay, but it doesn't mean that the whole community is not like on the edge of their seat waiting to see if Nintendo's going to come after them next. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean that everything that you just said about how Nintendo's been acting in that, and then them finally releasing in America Wrecking Crew 98 as part of the Nintendo Switch Online. I was so happy to see that. I freaking love Wrecking Crew 98. And I'm like, oh man, like maybe Nintendo's not so bad. But no, they're still doing some things that make it counterintuitive to play the games out there that they have no way of making money on.
Meanwhile, we have another company that we're probably going to talk about for a couple of minutes here before we close up. But like, we have another company come out and be like, "Hey, here's how you break into our game and steal the NES ROM that's hidden in the background for you to go play on your emulator."
That is a very good point. Rugrats Babies in Gameland is an upcoming PC. It's a Steam, Switch, PlayStation 4, 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll be very surprised if you don't see it on consoles. It seems to me like this is a game that I will very easily be able to pitch to my family to buy on Switch.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
But the main thing behind this game is the fact that they also wanted to team up with Limited Run Games, which is a whole other thing. I finally got my River City Girls 2 Collector's Edition that I pre-ordered, I'm going to say 2 years ago. Is that crazy?
I was going to say 2 years later, huh?
Right, like 2 years later, huge box comes. You all know how I feel about River City Girls 2, some more than others. An official apology to Claude for making him play through River City Girls 2 arcade mode. One of the best mods ever for a video game, but still, that game's got an overlength problem in addition to some other things. But it's one of those things where, like, it's here. I had to pre-order it before the game came out, right? If I didn't place a pre-order beforehand, there'd be no way I could get a physical copy of the game. Not 100% true, but, like, kind of, right? There's a chance that I'll be at some convention and they'll have it available.
You're running a big risk of having to pay way too much money for that game eventually.
Exactly. Or it could be like Scott Pilgrim, where nobody cared about it, and I got it on clearance for like $5 from Limited Run Games in a Christmas yard sale clearance event.
Yeah, and then that fucker blew up over the last 2 years. But
whatever. But yeah, so that eventually comes. But Limited Run Games, they teamed up with this company that's doing the Rugrats. Can you look up the company name so we can have it? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I have it right here in front of me.
I think it's Mix Theory, maybe? I don't know. I don't know.
Page.
Yeah.
Mix Games.
Mix Games. Okay, so I just combined Wall Ride.
Yeah, Wall Ride is a smaller company. This is the only game that they have on their Steam page is Rugrats.
Gotcha.
But Mix Games is the larger developer on it.
But they teamed up with Limited Run Games to produce NES cartridges so you could play this on original Nintendo Entertainment System hardware, which is a really cool thing. But then, I don't know how cool this is. Like, on some level, I dig it, but on another level, it makes me go, huh? Is the fact that because they had to make an NES game, that is where they initially built the game. They built the whole video game for the NES and then developed a program that takes that and essentially emulates it in a better graphical style for your Steam, your PlayStation.
But we've seen this before. There are tons of games out there that have retro settings. You can turn on the retro settings, especially in a bunch of re-releases. I'm thinking of like the Disney Afternoon Pack and stuff like that. There's or not the Disney Afternoon Pack, but the
that one is just the game.
Aladdin Lion King one, One of them allows you to change modes, right? You can go into retro modes and stuff like that. Um, and what's happening in all of those is those games existed before. So this idea that you can go into a retro mode, like, is switching back between the two. Toe Jam and Earl did this too, right? Where you could switch back and forth between old graphics or new graphics. Um, but there was all of these different ones that they already existed, so they kind of just made the new graphics and overlayered over the old game, so you could switch between them really easily, and it's a selling point for a lot of these types of games. So they it's like part of the bit is that they went in this other direction. They created the game on with NES first, with the idea that this is what the game is, and then there is an HD mode to play in, that I think is like the best, one of the best bits of the whole thing. And like, you can change the music, you can change the graphics. There are certain things that I think look just so good in the old school graphics that, like, I just don't know why you'd play with the new graphics. I will say though, there was a couple of moments where I was a little lost because I was playing with the graphics so much. I kept kind of changing back and forth between them, that I was just like, wait a minute, I think I've been in this room already. I think I was in this room just in the other version. So just like, do yourself a favor and just pick one and stick to it.
Yeah. It's also there. That's a weird thing about it is, like, it's very much a demo. Like, this is not ready for prime time at all, the demo that released. Because there are moments where, like, it doesn't feel like this should be a stoppage point. Because in other rooms, if I just walk to the end of the screen, I will continue on. And it's not like there's something blocking me. It's just, oh, no. That's just not a place you can go.
Yeah.
So I hope that, like, that gets a little bit better. Like, I don't know.
The demo, yeah. So the way that the demo works is there's a opening level that is very straightforward, so that you can learn how to do the basic controls. This is how you move around. This is how you jump. This is how you interact with the world in ways that and you pick up on how you can do that and all that. And then there's an actual level, right? Where you can go around, you can go back, you can go up and down. You have to kind of puzzle some things out. You can't get through this room until you finish that room, type of thing. Meanwhile, the whole time there's collectibles that you're trying to get and that sort of stuff too. So there's really just one level, and like a tutorial is really all that there is right
Mm-hmm.
now. But in the level that they put out, I don't know, man. I was in love with, like, dealing with the enemies. It took me a little bit to figure out the boss battle, but once I figured out specifically stage 3 of the boss battle, once I kind of figured out what I was doing there, that worked really well. Like, there's a lot going on, and like the fact that it has an HD kind of overlay that you can put on if you want is, to me, that's like the add-on. So it's really interesting to me that when you start the game, that's how it starts you, is in that HD setup. But like, do yourselves a favor, check out the lower 8-bit version and see how you feel about that, because I think the game looks even better in that, and I think it plays a little bit better.
Yeah,
One
it
of the big
feels
things about
tighter,
it
the
going into the
controls.
8-bit
I'll
version
agree.
is it forces the screen size to change into 4:9, which is like, when you're in the HD one, you can set it to that if you want, but overall it's going to be widescreen. And so, like, I was literally missing like a coin at the top of the screen that I just didn't see because I was in the widescreen. But when I switched to the 8-bit and it forced it into that 4:9 screen,
Four by
I
three.
then could see 4:3.
Yeah.
I could then see the coin at the top of the screen, like that kind of shit, you know?
Yeah, it's that's an interesting thing about it. And I really do feel like it was built in that NES, so the controls feel a little bit tighter, a little bit more responsive, where the overlay, there's like almost an imperceptible amount of delay, but that imperceptible amount of delay, you're going to wonder, like, why did I miss that jump? Why didn't I stop moving when I thought I was going to stop moving? But the really interesting thing, and one of the reasons why I did want to make sure Sejohn had played the demo, is Sejohn, did you realize what this game is a slant remake of in a lot of ways?
Um, I mean, I was getting some Chip and Dale style vibes and things like that, with like the ways that you pick stuff up and get around, or have to like crush things and throw them at people and stuff, but not any particular game. Like, more that it reminded me of that genre of game than it reminded me, like, oh, this is just that game. Maybe Nemo and Slumberland, if I'm remembering correctly.
It's Super Mario Brothers 2. Super Mario
Oh,
Brothers 2. I mean, down to the
wait, wait,
fact
wait.
that
Wait, when you say Super Mario Brothers 2, do you mean
Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, Doki Doki Panic. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Not the one that released in Japan as Super Mario Brothers 2. That
Not
became
the game I
lost
fell in
levels,
love with
right?
last year. No.
Yeah, no.
Super Mario Brothers 2. To quote Donkey on that. To the fact that, like, they've admitted it, that Tommy is just Mario's stats put on Tommy. It's why Chucky has the flutter jump of Luigi. It's why Phil can dig the fastest, and it's why Lil can float like Princess Peach.
Princess Peach, yeah.
They have the exact same stats as it. And for me, you know, talking about let's create this nostalgic Rugrats game, to decide like, let's take the most controversial of the original NES Super Mario Brothers games and use that one as the blueprint. That seemed like an interesting thing to do.
No, it's a cool choice.
Yeah, I mean,
I said, I like the boss battle once I figured it out. I liked the mechanic of having to kind of backtrack a bit in the pyramid level to kind of figure out where I was at and to get all the collectibles. It was fun to go looking for the collectibles. Like the controls make sense. The goals make sense, so like everything really was like really intuitive and fun. There's not a lot of games like this being made anymore, right? It reminded me of when I went back and played like DuckTales when like the remake for that was a big craze and stuff.
Good. That game is excellent. Way Forward did that one too. Since we're giving all this Way Forward stuff, I'm a little upset that I missed out on Risky Revolution, and I hope that even though it's a Game Boy Advance game that they were selling through limited run games on a cartridge, they release it on like PlayStation and Nintendo Switch as a way that I can download it. The way that they did the original Shantae for Game Boy Color. Like up-res
you know what I'm actually seeing right now? Sorry, I pulled the Steam page up to answer some questions about the game earlier, and the preview for this game is playing, for Rugrats is playing, and they pitch the HD mode as an add-on. Like everything is being shown in the 8-bit, and then at the end of the commercial, it comes up and says, including an HD mode, and then it switches to the HD widescreen graphics. It's just, that is the biggest thing that baffles me about that demo, is the fact that it starts you off in that HD mode, and I just think that's the inferior mode.
Oh, yeah. And for anybody out there, I'm going to share it. One of the devs talked about it at PAX East. So that's it. If you do download the demo for... and it's Rugrats Adventures in Gameland, not Babies in Gameland. I was confusing it with the Rugrats episode Babies in Toyland, where Tommy and Chucky get locked in the toy store. So my apologies. I just got too much Rugrats in my mind. But if you do download the demo for Rugrats Adventures in Gameland, and then you go to the local files, it's right there as rugrats.nse. And you can extract it from there, and you can run it on any Nintendo Entertainment System emulator, which that I will not share here because that's dicey territory, like actual emulator names. But they're easy enough to find out there. Most people, you probably already have one that you use. And yeah, I agree. It is weird that it's like the add-on is the fact that you get to play an 8-bit. Because it's clear, I mean, they've said in multiple interviews, we built this game on the NES and then did the HD overlay. So who knows? The Shadow probably. I don't know. But yeah. So it definitely worth checking out. But I don't know. It's been an interesting one. And the big thing for me is the fact that like, oh yeah, Doki Doki Panic, Super Mario Brothers 2, that game that like everybody kind of has an opinion on. Let's use that as our starting point. Which brings me, I have one other thing I'd like to talk about. I know that we're getting a little long in the episode, but you don't have Paramount Plus, right? Are you a Paramount Plus user? Okay.
Nope.
Well, sail the digital high seas, my friend, to find a little show by Taylor Sheridan, you know, the Yellowstone and Hell or High Water guy. We've talked about him before. That stars Sylvester Stallone, called Tulsa King. Since I've been home all week, like recovering from my double ear infection, I thought this is the time I'm finally going to watch Tulsa King. It is 9 episodes. They're all about 35 minutes long, which I didn't realize how wonderful that is for like a mob drama, like a crime drama series. The show is fantastic. It is engaging. It is just gripping. It's hilarious. Really good characters, like scary bad guys, scary heroes. Super enjoyable show. I cannot recommend Tulsa King enough. Like, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but like, if you're looking for something to watch and you have Paramount Plus, Tulsa King should go to the top of your list. And if not, there are ways of watching shows on streaming platforms that you may or may not subscribe to. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that, like Forrest Gump. Yeah. But it's so
man.
good. Oh my God. He makes you want to be a better person.
Recommendations. I will say that I've been watching Fallout this week with the premiere of that on Amazon, and that has been a fucking blast. All the good things you've heard about that show, it's even better. Like the ways in which it captures that world and really leans into the kind of stuff I love about that world. It's phenomenal. Bloody as hell, like really gory, really scary. I think that it's one of the scariest kind of Fallout like stories beginnings that I've seen, but like not out of character for what happens in those games. But we'll talk more about it as that show goes on, because I'm just having a blast with it.
Do you have anything else that you want to add to this episode? Because I have something I have to button and apologize. Like Devon's final thoughts.
No, man, go for it.
So we talked a lot about X-Men 97 last week, even though Sejohn hasn't seen it yet. And I do have to say, that was based on the first 4 episodes that had aired. And the 5th episode of X-Men 97 was fucking incredible. There are still some questionable choices in it, but I will save those until Sejohn has seen it and we can have a proper discussion about it. But I do have to say, as on the fence as I was about the series, that 5th episode kind of pushed away all of my issues. Aside from the issue that they keep saying this is what the 5th season would have been, and there's no way, based on storylines that were referenced in the 5th episode. And you know what? That's fine. If they didn't keep trying to play it like, this is what we always wanted to do, these were the scripts we already had. Like, no, it isn't. This is a new adaptation using those characters, and that's fine. And in fact, this episode was better for the fact that you didn't try to stand on ceremony and tie it to a friggin' 30-year-old show. So I don't know, but the way that everybody else has felt about X-Men 97 that I just could not comprehend, I finally felt that way with the 5th episode. So do with that what you will. But I do need to, after everything I said about it last episode, it would feel wrong not to come to you and say, I may have overreacted a little bit. And after the 5th episode, I'm cautiously excited for what may come.
Yeah, cool.
So that's that. I think that's it for this episode. I am still not 100%, so thank you for bearing with me while I am getting better. Hopefully I will be back for the next episode. If you'd like to say anything about anything we said during this episode, we have the Discord. Find us on social media. There's a link to join our Discord, and you got to be in the Discord if you want to see photos of all the Ninja Turtle playing cards that we reviewed earlier in this episode, because we just don't give a fuck, right? We're going to do what we want. This is the show about everything. Oh, I said I was going to talk about the Curb Your Enthusiasm finale. That's wait until next week, because I need a week away from it. I loved it, but before I talk about it proper, I'm going to give one more week for people to catch up and check it out. So you have that to look forward to next episode as well. Sejohn, anything else you want to pitch or push or anything before we send this one back to Will?
No, keep an eye on the Discord, guys. There's always stuff happening in there, especially with us like referencing stuff in the episode and stuff like that. But but other than that,
I think Sejohn's trying to get something started in the Discord. Speaking of Wizards of the Coast and rolling dice. But you never know.
A fucking crazy ass project. So I get people's hesitation, but if anybody's interested in doing something completely off the fucking wall, like reach out to me.
Excellent. So as all of that said, Will, we know you're home from your honeymoon. Welcome home. But now it's time to bring us home. Have a great one, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.